Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy. The Breeders' Academy proudly presents Bred to Perfection with Kenny Troiano, a show for serious breeders.
Whether you are looking to create a new strain or simply improve an old one, you have come to the right place.
Daddy, I want more chickens.
Oh, boy.
Now, here's your host, Kenny Troiano.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bred to Perfection. My name is Kenny Troiano, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to helping you become a better breeder and taking your strain to the next level. That's right, my friends. It doesn't matter if you are brand new to breeding or you've been breeding for many years. There is something all of us can do to improve our fowl for future generations.
What a filthy job.
Could be worse.
How?
Could be raining.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred to Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders' Academy, and I'm here with my wife Nancy and my co-host Frank Bradley. What's going on, guys?
Everywhere I go, I hear rain.
You can't even get away from it here, can you?
I want to send it all out to Nancy. Nancy loves rain.
She likes weather.
I just want her to have all of it.
Oh, you want to hear something funny? And everybody knows that. Nancy loves weather. She thinks she's the weather lady, right? She's sitting, when you guys were going through all those storms, she was sitting on this computer over here going through all these YouTube channels that were talking about weather and breaking it down and what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. And she's checking all this out and she looks over to me and she goes, I am so glad I live in California. I almost fell off my chair.
Wow. That's
scary stuff. That was some scary stuff. I got to hand it to all you people on the East Coast, in the Midwest. Yeah, maybe even Washington and Oregon, because they get a lot of weather up there. We are in a little pocket down here in San Diego, and we don't get diddly squat. We got some rain today, and we've been getting some rain throughout the winter months. Usually we get 2 or 3 rain storms a year, and we've been getting a lot this year, so I've been really loving it.
Yeah, Frank goes, he says something about needing to build his ark again. And I told him, I'm going to have to pull out that banner again of you setting up your ark and getting ready for the winter. We're in spring, and I swear, it just feels like winter. We're dealing with it here. It's wet, it's muddy, it's cold. Not to your standards, but I mean, it's pretty bad here right now.
We had some 80-degree days, and then here to go from that, just beautiful weeks. And you're enjoying it, and then you wake up the next day and it's 37 degrees out. So that's hard on chickens. They're pretty good about climatizing to the weather.
Even Kentucky chickens?
Yeah, even Kentucky chickens. You go up and they're all happy. They're vigorous. They're crowing. They're just happy to be alive. And then you go up after that temperature change and they're like just humped up. Just totally different chickens after that. But a couple of days after the cold, even if it stays in the 30s, a couple of days after that, they go right back again. They adjust to it. They go on, and they're good shape. It's just they have a hard time like us dealing with the big change that way.
Tip of the day. Do not do your selection when it's cold or when the weather changes all of a sudden, because that is like the worst time to do it, I'm telling you. I was laying in bed, and I was just waking up, and all of a sudden I heard this roar. And Frank, it sounded like a tornado or a hurricane even going by. It was so loud, right? So I get up, I look out the window, and I don't see any rain. I look a little closer, and the hail was coming down so thick. And then I came into my den, I looked at my shed over here. We have a mini garage over here. The whole roof was just completely white. I couldn't see the roof at all. It was so thick of hell.
When was this?
This morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's we've honestly got them here so big. There were anywhere I've seen them the size of golf balls up to tennis balls. And my black truck was sitting in one of those, and I got numerous dents all in it. We didn't have a carport ready at that time. I've had to actually take my vehicles to a bank, deserted bank, abandoned bank down the street and park under their drive-through for that. So if we catch it ahead of time, we have to protect our bikes. What we can't get under roof, we take down there and put under there.
I have quite a few outlines ready to go. I mean, we keep the last couple of weeks we've been changing our mind on what kind of show we've been wanting to do. And I have some really good outlines, but with everything going on in the East Coast, what Frank's been telling me, what Nancy's been watching on YouTube, and then us here too, like I said, it's April, feels like winter. And I thought it'd be a good time to talk about what to do in bad weather and preparing for the storm. So I put together an outline. This will be a good one for today, and then we'll get back on track. I wanted to be more with the times, what's happening today, what's going on. Maybe people can relate to it. Because honestly, the way it was looking, and Frank was telling me that he was expecting, I think he said flash floods until Tuesday or something like that. I didn't even really think wasn't even sure you were going to make this show, to tell you the truth. Yeah. So I was like, okay, even if we're still having the rains and what have you, then who knows who's going to show up to even watch this show. Okay. So I thought, let's just do an easy one. Let's do one on storm. So that's what we're going to do today. But I do want to welcome all the new members. Make sure to begin with the Start Here pages. There's a lot of information on the website. Like we always say, don't try to absorb it all at one time. If you need any help, make sure to contact Frank and myself. And there's a lot of programs in the works. We're putting pretty much information on there weekly. Make sure you go at your own pace. We do have, if you go to the Start Here pages, you're going to see the beginner's track, the intermediate track, and we have a couple advanced tracks too. And then once you go through those, you can use the website as a reference, and that'll lead you through the Founders Program and a whole bunch of other things too. For the members, make sure you join us on the back end for the Breeders Roundtable. Today's topic is going to be environmental effects on the genome. And I like that one because it goes with what we're talking about today. It goes with the weather, how the weather is going to affect your breeding, how it's going to affect the way they inherit their traits, how they pass their traits. So I thought that'd be a good one to take care of on the back end. And then if you haven't joined the Breeders' Academy, make sure you do. We have the Master's Class video series, the Members Roundtable, the Founders Program, programs and courses that support the Founders Program, our daily articles. And like I said, we're adding new content pretty much every week. More Master's Class videos are coming, programs, courses, and the daily articles. And we also do coaching calls. So make sure you join the Breeders' Academy. Just go to www.breedersacademy.com. Also, make sure you join our newsletter, which we call the Breeders' Bulletin. There you're going to get a lot of free tips, a lot of free articles that I think you're going to enjoy. Just like I said, go to www.breedersacademy.com. Okay, so before we get into things, I just want to talk about a couple things before we get started. Some of you might have noticed if you check out my YouTube channel, I've cleaned it up a lot. I used to have the podcast on there. I only keep a few on there now, the most recent ones. If you want to watch listen to the podcast, go to, let me put this up here. You'll have reference. Go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. The podcast, all the episodes for the podcast are there. You can check that over there. They're not going to be on YouTube like they were. Like I said, it's only going to be a few at a time. Also, we're only going to have a certain amount of YouTube videos or our live show on YouTube at one time. Everything else is going to be archived on the Breeders' Academy. So for you members, if you want to watch some of the old live show, make sure to go on to the Breeders' Academy for that, and you'll find those pretty easily. About a week or so ago, I was on YouTube, and YouTube sent me a notice saying, hey, why don't you do YouTube memberships? And I didn't really want to do that because I wanted everything to be on the website itself. But Nancy and I talked it over, and I think I talked it over with Frank too, and thought it was a good idea that we can make all the live shows, a complete archive, available to, I want to call you the general public, people that aren't members. Okay. And so if you go on my YouTube channel, right next to the subscribe button, there's a join button. And so it's $25 a month. And you get access to all the live shows, all the past live shows. And we'll be adding to that weekly. Now, for my members of the Breeders' Academy, do not join that. Everything is on the website already for you. Okay. And it's just the archive of live shows. So these people here that are joining the YouTube channel membership, they're not getting the Masters Class videos. They're not getting the members roundtable. They're not getting the members Q&A. They're not getting any of those kind of videos. It's just the archive of live shows. And so that's the way we're going to make that available to you guys. But you'll continue to get the live show as we do them on there. But I'm only going to keep 10 or 12 on there, Frank.
Yeah. The thing about it is you put everything on there for free. It's really not fair to the members if you think about it. The members, they pay to play, so to speak, and that's part of theirs. Now, like you said, there's not going to be any masterclass videos or anything like that on it, just basically the live show and the podcast. But still, it's really not fair to the members for people to be getting it for free, and that's part of what they get as a member. So I can really see that aspect of it. It's fair to them.
I think it's going to work out good. What do you think, Nancy?
Here's the thing. I watch a show on YouTube and I found it, and then I watched the show, and I've watched all 2 years of their episodes. It's not that many, but I binge watched it. And I can think of the same way for the Bred to Perfection Live is people will find one episode and they'll like it and they'll start binge watching it, but you're only going to get to 10 to 12 episodes and you're done. And we did 130 episodes in there?
Yeah, 130. This is 131.
Yeah. This is a really good deal for them to be able to get every single one of those live shows that we've done. And there have been some hidden nuggets in those live shows that we've done that only the members know that, oh, yeah, I know that's a hidden nugget. But it'll be nice for you guys to be able to go and watch every single one of them at your leisure. It's not like you have to go in and watch them all in 1 month. I don't know. I think it's a good deal.
The only ones that are not going to be on there are the healthcare and disease prevention videos we did with Dr. Gallardo. Those are all on the website. Okay, so those won't be on there. There's a handful. I don't want to say all of the whole complete. I know I said it. Maybe I shouldn't have said it. It's not going to be the whole complete collection of live shows, but it's a majority of them. Okay, the healthcare ones aren't on there. Let's see. There's a few here and there, and then some of them were the ones we did for the website tour and things like that. So the only one they're going to see is the most recent one, that's the one that matters. But the majority of them are there, and I was looking them over as I was putting them on there. Frank, those are all really good information.
Yeah, if you listen, here's the thing about it. And in the old days, if you listen to something one time, you're going to say, okay, yeah, that was okay. It was all right. You listen to it again a week later, and you're like, oh, I didn't notice that last time. I didn't pick that up last time. Yeah, that's good information. And then it seemed like this is the way it is with me. I'm talking from my point of view. And then you listen to it 2 or 3 times, you just keep getting more out of it as you listen to it. If you're set up in a way just like Nancy was talking about, where you can actually binge, watch them at any time that you want, they're more valuable to you than just watching it one time and never hearing it again. Much, much more beneficial to listen to it more than once.
I was thinking about it the other day because Nancy was saying, why don't you cover this? And I go, well, we did cover that. Why don't you cover this? We did cover that. We have topics, but we do a lot of what do you want to say? How do you say it? Like you're covering multiple things in one subject. So we're going to cover some things here, but some of these things you've heard us talk about before. And I'm just really good about we do an hour's show but we pack it full of information. And so some of it's going to be new, some of it's going to be similar to what we've done before, that kind of thing. But I like that because I'm a big repetitious kind of guy. I learn that way, I teach that way, and I promote it that way.
Here's the thing about it too, Kenny. It may be repetitious, but sometimes you will explain it in a different way and it will make more sense, or it'll become more clear than your original statement on that subject matter.
Yeah. So go ahead.
There's different scenarios in that. I know when I'm listening to something like that, usually I'm in bed or at work, and something can pull my attention away at that time that particular part's coming up. And my mind doesn't pick it up. So when I go back, I'm like, how in the heck did I miss that? Well, it was obvious, but how did I miss it? But so it's little things that way. And going back again to what Nancy was saying, that gives you an opportunity of the stuff that you did miss that way, that you can go back and listen to it different times and actually get the full benefit of the information.
And I hear that a lot from the members about the members roundtable and the master's class video, that they really like listening to them over and over again, just for what Frank was saying, that there's things that they miss every time they watch it. They go and watch it, they go and repeat it or watch it again, and they learn something new that they didn't hear before. And it's just a tribute to the kind of information that we provide. We're packed with, our outlines are packed with information. And then we improvise throughout the outline. There's a lot of what we talk about that's not even on the outline. And that's with the live shows, that's with the masterclass videos, that's with the members roundtable. So I like that. And it goes back to what we're talking about here. A lot of the videos are going to be archived. If you only watched them once, you missed a lot. That's all I can say.
I had a buddy the other day who watches the show, and he got a hold of me and was asking me some questions on different topics. And he was a member for a while, and he goes, before I'd watch the live shows, and you guys would get me pumped up. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm understanding this. And he'd go, then you guys would go down that damn rabbit hole, and then you just leave me hanging. And I said, did you become a member? Yeah. I said, it worked. Yeah. He would always say, I tried to piece them together to where I could use them. And then I finally just give up and decided just to become a member. And then he seen what we was talking about, basically, once he got in there as a member, the way we was wording it and the way we was giving the information of it out.
I think you guys would be surprised that if you were to join and see how much information's in the website. I think we downplay it more than you think, because we highlight a few of the things like the master's class videos, the members roundtable. I know we say that a lot of the programs and courses support the founders program, which we also have the founders program, but it's a lot of information. I don't know, if it wasn't for the inflation and what's going on in the world, honestly, my personal opinion is $50 is not very much money, for what we provide. It should be more than that.
They're going to gain a lot more from that. They go buy one trio and get ripped off of the Breeders' Academy. If we can stop that from happening, they've saved money in the end. So I see it as a great investment. And I know I say this all the time, me and Kenny do, but it's no more than a couple bags of feed. You go buy this Gamecock mix right now, and you're looking at $25-$30 a bag. The way grains and stuff went up on it. And a lot of times, the Breeders' Academy, to me, is more important than the nutrition is in the beginning. It's well worth its money. But going back to that rabbit hole deal,
yeah,
I explained to him that if we was giving out the information that was inside the Breeders' Academy, one, it wouldn't be fair to the members. And two, what would be the use from them becoming members to get there? We couldn't cover all that in 1 hour shows. How long it would take us, Kenny, to cover everything that's inside the Academy in a 1 hour show? And yeah, you've got me and Kenny to tell you and basically sit here and talk about it in the conversation. But with all the information it's got in combination, there's nothing else like it. I mean, anything you want to know on breeding and a whole breeding program with a scientific fact in the ending, I mean, it's worth its weight in gold.
I can tell you what I'm leaning towards, and that is to have maybe a half a dozen of the live shows on there at a time, half a dozen of the podcasts on there at a time, and then everything else be about the membership model. And I've had people say to me, oh man, not the membership model again. All I can tell you is get used to it, because everybody is going that direction. It's everywhere you look. It's not just, YouTube channels, shows, your cable TV, your electricity, your streaming for like Netflix, whatever. All those are actually membership type models. So it's everywhere you look. And if I was just on here just to have fun, Frank and I chatting and all that, and which I am enjoying it, that would be one thing. But for people like us who actually make a living doing this is all we do. I don't have another job. This is it. I do this 24 hours a day, and it feels like 24 hours a day. I get up, I get out of bed, I go right to my desk and start working, okay? And I don't stop other than to go feed my chickens, exercise, and get something to eat. And I'm on there till sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning. I go back to bed. Then I go back to bed, and then I get up and do the same thing again. We take one day off usually. Nancy's day off, whatever Nancy's days off is the day we take off. But this is what we do for a living. And if it wasn't for that, it's like we talked about it before, Frank. It's the Gamecock magazine that I used to write for. And I used to write for the Poultry Press, the Feathered Warrior, the Grit Still, and some other magazines all over the world. At that time, I wasn't making money. I was doing it for the fun of it, for helping people. And I did that for almost 20 years. Okay. And it's not that I felt like, oh, it's time to start making money. It's just that when your hobby becomes your work and it takes up that much time, then the way you teach changes. And so I went from just putting out information in the periodicals to actually helping people on the phone all the time, to building the website, to starting the podcast became the magazines for me. But I turned my hobby into my work, and now we're making a living at it, which is awesome. I love it. And it's because of you guys who are following us, joining us, becoming members, you guys are allowing me to do this, and I am so grateful for it. I'm real happy about that.
You go back, you mentioned the Gamecock magazine, though, Kenny. Think about how many people had a subscription to the Gamecock magazine, okay, for many years. I know I had probably for 35 years, if not longer. And this is no different. And it's pretty much the same price of what they was charging. A yearly fee is what Kenny's charging for this. And to say that the Gamecock magazine wasn't educational, it was. There was some really good articles in it. Kenny mentioned he wrote in it. A lot of people wrote some good articles that was in there, but the Breeders' Cabinet is nothing like the Gamecock. You just have to see it to believe it. I couldn't put it into words to explain it, but if you're serious about breeding, the Breeders' Cabinet is where you need to be, because it's the start and the beginning. It doesn't have different articles saying different things like Gamecock. You'd have one guy say this about breeding, like Kenny's article. Then you'd have another guy write something that was totally against to what Kenny was saying. So you never know which side of the fence to get on. With this right here, it's straightforward, it's scientific, it's a whole breeding program. It doesn't leave you on the edge of a cliff, scratching your head, wondering which way you're going to go, where if you're going to have to grow wings to be able to go. But there's no similarity. That's the biggest part of the Breeders' Academy. It's it's a well-oiled system that's been proven. There's no maybes or ifs. It works.
It's funny you said, I wanted to laugh because everybody's information was different than mine, and mine was different from theirs. It's still that way. I don't know anybody who teaches what I teach and how I teach it. You know what I mean? We're a very niched topic. It's all about breeding. It's all about creating strains, using actual breeding programs, that kind of thing. We don't spend a lot of time on how to raise them, that kind of thing, or how to feed them. I do have a feeding program on there, but that's about it. I mean, we don't talk about the other kind of stuff. We're very niche. We talk about breeding, and that's about almost it. So
I beg to differ with you, Kenny. We do talk a bit about how to raise them.
Not a
because
lot.
We talk about pen space. We talk about roosting, how high or how low the roost should be. We've talked about incubators and chick care. So, yeah.
On the show, but not on the website.
Yeah, the website is 90% breeding, pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
I would say. Yeah, and plus that's what we specialize in.
True.
Is breeding.
True.
We do the other stuff. I'm working on some nutrition stuff. Kenny's already got some a nutrition page on there. Like Nancy was doing the record keeping.
I'm still working on that one.
So we do cover other things, but I would say we're at least 90% breeding as far as the websites come.
Yeah,
least,
that's our
maybe
niche.
more.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
But there are other things around breeding that are important to know for breeding as well.
Okay.
And we have that.
And we mostly cover that in the shows,
Yeah.
like in the members roundtable and things like that. So yeah, make sure, like I said, I'd rather you join the Breeders' Academy. We almost didn't do this because we did want everybody in the Breeders' Academy, but I understand that not everybody's going to join the Breeders' Academy. I think if you did, you'd be amazed, and I think you'd like it. But if you just want the shows, then that's available. And I just want to repeat what I was saying earlier. If you're already a Breeders' Academy member, don't join the YouTube memberships. Okay. Everything that's on there is on the website. You're already getting that. Okay. And if you think that one is better than the other, it's the website, because the YouTube membership, although there's a lot of videos there, it's limited. It is. It's not all there, but there's a lot there. I think we have right now about 60, maybe 50 or 60 videos on there right now. We're going to be adding to that weekly. But that's what's there. So it's available to you that way. Okay. The only other thing I want to talk about real quick before we get into this is something Nancy and I talked about the other day. And this is what this is going to do. We're calling it the weekly announcements. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come on. It's going to be very informal. Just come on, let you guys know what's been going on the week prior and in the upcoming week, let you know what's going on, what we have planned, what's coming up with the podcast, what's coming up with the Masters Class videos, what's coming up with the live show and the members roundtable, anything we have planned, and just have a little chat with whoever shows up and just give you guys a little information. Nothing special, but that would alleviate or relieve some of what we're doing now. We're already over 30 minutes into the show. We haven't even gotten into the show. And the idea is to do that monthly announcements to maybe make it easier to get right into the topic on the live show. That's what we're hoping for. And
actually, Kenny, it's a weekly
what'd I say?
announcement. You said monthly, and it's going to be on Mondays.
Hopefully things can change. Okay. But I'm planning on Mondays. Maybe I'll get into a routine. It'll be the same time of day on Monday. But we'll see. I may just go out there outside, sit at the picnic table with my computer, turn it on, and then do it. That's what I'm thinking.
That'll be for everybody.
Yeah, yes. Public, yeah. And I ran a test the other night. It was late, too. I didn't think I was going to get anybody, but I did. And ran some systems, checked out my wireless mic, make sure everything was working. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do and see how that goes. If it goes well and it's accomplishes something, and I'll keep it going. But it's going to be very informal. Just get some information out, maybe take a few questions. We'll see. But that's what we're planning.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. This show was brought to you by the Breeders' Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl. As a member, we'll provide you with the roadmap that you will need to create a true family or strain. I urge you to check it out. You've got nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. You also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders' Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl.
I hope to see you there. So let's get started.
Okay, you guys ready to get into the topic finally?
Yeah, what is the topic of the day, my dear?
Topic is we have proper storm care, preparing your birds for the incoming storm. Goes what we're talking about and what's going on. And I'm glad Frank that he made it, because this is up his alley. Okay, probably more so than me, but maybe we can give some information that can help you guys. So
if I was ever an expert this would be my field.
Okay. Get your guys' questions in. This should be a very interactive conversation. Your guys' input would make a big difference here, and your input would be good because, we'll cover a little bit about breeding, but it's mostly about, and it's not really winter care. It's more like storm care, what to do about a storm that you didn't really expect, but maybe you can prepare for, or maybe some things you can do about some things you can do to alleviate some of the pain that you're going through as you're going through it. Okay, so this first one would be make sure your structures are secure, Frank. I see that here too. Yeah. What's so funny?
Because if anybody needs to make sure his structures are secure, it'd be Frank, because he gets the flash flood stuff where things just float away.
Now,
like feeders and waters.
As far as winds, I'm not affected as much by winds. We could have all the wind that we wanted, 30, 40 mile an hour winds. And I've done this so long that there's certain things that I do, but the location that I've got them is best. Kenny's been there. He's seen it. Here in Kentucky, we call them hollers. Somebody else might call them valleys, but I've got hillsides on both sides. And I'd say it's a span of maybe 1,000 yards from hilltop to hilltop. And I'm like halfway in it. So those mountains actually protect me from the wind. Now, other day when we had all that wind, and I sent Kenny a video of it, and it was pretty bad. It was blowing people off their feet.
Wow.
I didn't lose a top, nothing. I've got my tops, basically, and I got this from NASCAR, believe it or not. The roof flaps on top of the cars.
Yeah.
I secure the back two corners with zip ties. And I lay a small 2-pound weight on the front of it. Now, if the wind goes underneath it and gets ready to pick the cage up, the top goes back and it allows the air go through the top of the cage. Now, a lot of people say, well, your chickens get wet. I said, I'd rather have a wet chicken than a dead or blown off chicken. None of those tops, I've had them deploy before, flip back over the years, but as bad as that wind was this week, I didn't have one top that was even lifted up and flipped back. Nothing was. Now, I've got the sides on it, and I've got all my cages positioned to where I know which direction the wind comes in. So it blocks it off the chickens, but the top, I do have it fixed to where if the wind gets underneath it to lift the cage up, the top comes back, lets the air through, and it doesn't actually take your cage off. I had a buddy that lost 2 cages, and I'm serious. They never found the chickens. They never found the cages. He don't know what happened to them. They just flew off. And to this day, that was 5 years ago. Wow. To this day, he knows of nothing of where they went or where they ended up at.
Wow.
Who knows? It could have been miles away. You never know.
No way. Really?
Yeah. Yep. Never to return. Never seen it. And we're made out of 2x6 treated bottoms with the big 14 gauge wire with the dome 10 tops. And 2 of them just gone. Chickens, pens, and all just gone overnight. Disappeared.
Wow.
Did you ever figure out what you're going to do about the feeders and waters so they don't get washed away?
Just take them up and not put them. If it's given bad weather, we just take them up and put them in the building. Because I was telling Kenny was like, I said, I got some new feed cups, but I'm not going to put them on until after the storm. Kenny said, well, just wire them on the pen. And I said, if you secure anything on a pen, the water comes off. If we have a flash flood, it comes off the mountain, and it can be 6 inches deep. It can be a foot deep, and it's got some pull to it. So just a little bitty 4 or 5 ounce cup wired onto your pen. If that water catches it, it's gone.
It's going to take the whole pin away, right?
It'll take the whole pen. Those big metal pans that you and Kenny feed your birds out of.
Yeah.
If I had those in my pen, and say the water hit it and went up against the pen, chickens and all is going to be washed off.
Wow.
When it's given bad weather that way, if I don't want to lose my cups, I just take them all, stack them up, put them inside the building, and after the weather's gone, then put them all back out again. Because we've got to empty them anyway. Once it rains, they fill up full of water. So we have to, Amanda hates that too. That's her pet peeve. She hates it when it rains because she's got to dump all the water out of the cups. But yeah, it's either the bad weather or the squirrels. The squirrels love them itself. They'll take them up in the trees and put them in their nest.
Wow.
When I was in
weather's
Kentucky,
much worse.
When I was in Kentucky, I saw all your houses down, what'd you call it? The hollows? Is that what you call it? Okay. Down in the bottom. The hollers? Okay.
Hollers.
Okay.
Hollers,
all at the bottom. Now in California, we'd be putting our houses on top of the hill. Okay. And you said you guys can't do that because of the wind. We get high winds too, but maybe not as bad as you. I'm not sure. But we do. We put our houses on top of the hills.
Because we like the view.
Yeah, but look, wait till you hear what they do, Nancy, because I was just shocked. You know, you hear about all these floods in Kentucky. It makes so much sense because you got these hills on both sides and they all funnel down into this little area where the roads are and where the houses are, okay? So all that rain's collecting on the hills and just running down to there. That's where all the flooding must be coming from. We don't have that here. The only time we have flooding or anything bad is when we had a fire the year before, maybe even a couple years before. All the vegetation's off the hill so that now it floods, and then the runoff from the hills, because there's nothing holding the hills up there anymore, then you have mudslides and things like that. That's the big thing here.
What hurt us was the strip mining. That's what made it dangerous for us.
Oh, is that right?
The top of the hills, they took off, they flattened them, made it like an airport. Then there's no trees. The only thing there is, if you're lucky, is a little grass when they re-sow it, reclaim it when they move back out of it. So when they done that, we lost, we had a natural disaster here back about 10, 11 years ago. There was 30-some people killed, just flash flood come off one of the mountains. It had never flooded there before, but we got such a hard rain, and the ground was already saturated, filled up full of water, so the water couldn't sink into the dirt. So it was just like a dam, a reservoir had ruptured and coming down. There was people, one couple was inside their garage in their bass boat, and the bass boat was all the way to the ceiling. It was so full of water. It was the only thing that saved them. If they hadn't got in that boat, and it was still on the trailer, if they hadn't got in that boat, they would have lost their lives too.
According to Joseph, we need to stop talking about this. I think we're creating bad karma.
No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that they call them hollers because if you didn't speak softly, all of the neighbors would be able to hear clearly your conversation. That's what he's saying.
Oh, okay. It's so small over there. I can't read it.
Yeah, because when you're in the bottom of those, and I'm up where my chickens is at, and somebody is down in the roadway, and they get out to go in somebody, I can hear every word they say. Every word. It magnifies it.
Wow. That's funny because where my dad is, we have 40 acres. I grew up there, right? And there's really not very many houses around us. But my mom could walk out the house, and we could be 2,000 or 3,000 feet away from the house down the hill. And my mom would just go, Kenny, Vinny, Glenn, Annette, come and eat. And she wouldn't even hardly yell, and we could hear her just like she was standing right next to us.
That's the way it is up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. My brother lives across the road there, and I can be up there feeding the chickens, and we can hear him talk inside his house.
Oh, my gosh.
And not have a door or anything. And we can hear him sitting over playing his guitar, the television, everything. It just carries, it just magnifies it.
I'm telling you, you can't have any Italians living over there in them hollers. You'll get no peace and quiet. Because those Italians,
I'm getting ragged on here.
Okay. No, sorry if I'm offending all the Italians. I love Italians. I married one. I'm talking about Italian, AKA Kenny. You know
how they handle that here, Nancy?
He talks a lot.
You know how they handle that here? If somebody's making too much noise when they shouldn't be in the middle of the night, they walk out on their porch, they take their gun and go back in the house, and then it gets quiet.
They do that here too.
That's how they do it. That's how they do it.
We had a neighbor, the Roystons, Nancy. How far? Maybe a quarter mile away or something like that. Okay,
not even that far.
Maybe not that far. And I was out on my motorcycle at night, ripping up the hill, right? And he came out and shot a shotgun at me. I could hear the bullet, the BBs or whatever you want, the shot going through the brush. And I went, oh crap! So I stopped, and my dad was going to call the police. So he called them up. Hey, what the hell are you doing? He goes, I just shot the gun just to get him quiet. And he goes, it worked. Yeah. So I was like, crap, he's shooting at me, man. So I was just a kid.
Oh my gosh. Getting back to the winds, I don't know if you have a special place to talk about the winds, Kenny, or are we talking
about it? I don't care.
Okay. So here in Southern California, we get what we call Santa Ana winds, and they're usually in October, November, December. Sometimes they can go all the way into April of the next year. And those winds come from the desert. It's a high level I don't know what you call it, but it's in the four corners of the United States, when they get a high there in their weather, we get all the winds coming from the east, and from the east of us are the deserts. And it can be anywhere from 20 to 50 mile an hour winds, gusting or constant, coming through Ramona. By the time you hit San Diego City proper, it's not as bad. But up here in Ramona, it really gets flying. And Kenny has to wire down the tops of his round pens that he holds his up and coming stags and
I use them as temporary pens.
Yeah, they're temporary pens, and he calls them his round pens. And every time the wind gets a kick in like that, he's looking out the sliding glass door and making sure that none of those tops come off. And sometimes they do.
I either tie them down or I put big bricks on them, which works too. Yeah. Biggest thing for the round pens is it rains is because they like to dig and create like a shallow area inside that pen, and then it collects the water. So then I got to move the birds out, put them in a different pen, fill it up with dirt, level it out, put the bird in there. So water collecting and mud is a big problem.
I use mostly mine's dome pens. So I've got the colored tin wrapped on top. So it's mounted to the treated 2x6s at the bottom. I don't have a problem with that. But I lived in a flat area back probably 30 years ago. It was all completely flat as far as you could see. There wasn't a hill around, really. It was out in the open. And what I done was I took chains and stakes. I call them dog couplings, like on the end of a dog chain, a leash. And I took stakes and just welded a washer up on top of them. And I took a piece of chain, probably about 6 inches long, and I put a dog coupling on each end of it. And that way I'd just snap them on each side of that pin. And I never had another pin flip over. Now, we got it so bad that it would bend the wire a little bit where it was trying to pick it up a little bit. But after that, I didn't. If you move your pins a lot, it's aggravating it, but it will save you a lot of grief on high winds. I would do it in the March, especially March and April, because Nancy was talking about high winds. March and April here on the East Coast, it's terrible as far as the wind. It's pretty much every day.
Not only do I either tie the tops down and put bricks on them, but I don't know if you noticed it when I was here, when you were here, is I use what do they call them? They're steel rods. There's a
rebarb.
Yeah, they're about 4 feet long. And I'll drive those into the ground, a good couple feet into the ground, and then tie the round pens to those. Mm-hmm. So I usually have 3. I have scattered all the way around the round pens, each of them. So that keeps the round pens from going anywhere. They're not going to go anywhere. And if they dig to where there's a little bit of a gap, whatever, I just take my little mallet hammer, pound them in. It brings the pen right down square to the ground again. And then I throw dirt in there to level it out, and then I put the chickens back in.
I used to have the round pins, but I had to put the smaller, I had the 14 gauge square welded wire, like my pins are made out of, but they would always run their heads through it and their hackles would look hideous. I would have to take smaller check wire and put around it, probably 2 foot up to keep from them running their heads through it. But I used to have a ton of those. But with the dome pins, I've had better luck out of those. I think I've got, when I built those with the tin, wood, all the materials, I was out probably about $43. Now they're probably double that. It'd probably take double that to fix them now. Yeah. Probably, more likely.
Yeah. Chickens can handle a lot of cold. It's the drafts that kind of mess them up, and if they get wet. If you can keep them dry and try to keep the drafts off them as much as possible, especially when it's windy, they can handle a lot of cold. So I don't usually look at the cold as being a big deal, especially California. It's funny, Nancy. Everybody says we live in paradise, but we can have extreme weathers where we're at too. It can be pretty darn cold. And it can be pretty darn hot here. So
we had a hurricane last year. Oh my God!
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
It was crazy.
That's our claim to fame.
The rain was going this way instead of this way. And it did get windy for a little bit, but it was nothing like what the news was saying it was going to be. And it was nothing compared to what they get in Florida or the Southeast. I'm not even saying that, Louisiana and Texas and Georgia and all those places, or the Carolinas. per se.
Let's do all the
Nothing
night
like
states.
that.
Let's just label them all off, Nancy.
Yeah,
Let's
you
get
got to
it
give
one
them
state at
credit
a
because
time.
those guys go through hell when they get a hurricane coming in through that area. My heart goes out to them. Really does.
Go ahead, Frank. No, I was just going to say that one of the things I do, not only do I prepare the pen the best I can and try to keep them as dry as I can, is I try to change their feed to accommodate the cold weather to keep them warm that way too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big part. That's a big, and I do the same thing. If I know something's coming in, I try to accommodate the feed to where it could help them, and I'll feed them late as I can at night, where they're nice and full and they're comfy. And in all the years I've had chickens, I'm 54 years old and I've had chickens. I don't remember ever picking my first one up. That's how long I've had them. But I've never to this day, knock on wood, and people on the East Coast, they know pretty much around Kentucky, we'll get down 30 below odd degrees. You walk out and your eyes and your nose instantly freeze. You go out, you take hot water, you throw it up in the air, it disappears, it's gone. It's that cold. And to this day, I've never had lost a bird to cold. Now, I've lost them to wind, okay, and flash flooding, but I've never lost one for cold, ever. And I see so many people say they lose birds to cold, and I feed frostbite. Now, I do occasionally in those 30 belows, I have had the straight comb birds lose the little tips on their comb. I have had that happen, but I try to put, if we have a big cold front coming in, I try to adjust it. I'll go out and I'll buy that black plastic and wrap the pins. I take everything off the barrels and the cord area. You really got to work with it. If you work with it and do it to the best of your ability, a lot of times you're not going to have any issues. It's when something hits and you don't prepare for it, it's when you really have the problems.
I don't think I've ever lost birds to the cold. I haven't heard of too many people that have myself. What I hear all the time and what I try to be careful of is, like we said, we adjust the feed for the cold, is that they lose weight. Because when they lose that much weight, they usually never get it back. So it's really important to make sure their weight's good. Now, some people will say they try to drop the weight during the molt before the winter. I don't know. For me, that's a terrible idea because I think you're really going to go downhill after that. Because I try, especially when they start going into the molt, not only do I up the protein, I try to do things that get them to gain weight so that not only they're getting through the molt really well, but they're going into the winter really well with some weight on them. Because they're going to lose some of that through the winter. It still does get cold here. I don't care if we live in paradise or not. It does get cold. And then whatever weight is left over, because I check them all the time, going into the breeding season, then I maybe do a little bit of adjustment there, and I'm usually good. And they're right where I need them come spring.
I do the same thing. I'll keep about a 1/4 ounce of gut fat on my birds through the colder parts of the year. Now, a lot of people say, oh, 1/4 of an ounce of gut fat. That's way too fat. I promise you, in cold weather, that's a loved part to the birds, that little extra fat to help keep them warm. And they will pick up, like Kenny said, they will pick up an appetite during that cold weather. But what we have problems here, I mentioned the 30 below. If we have that kind of temperatures, say 6 or 7 days in a row, you water your birds, and as soon as you put the water in the pan, it's froze up as soon as they take a couple of drinks. So that's where you've got to, I made a couple videos using electrolytes, Gatorade and so forth, trying to get the moisture back in them. So we have to do the best we can. Many times I've watered them with straight Gatorade. They like the best, by the way, but it gets electrolytes, gives them a little sugar, helps get them over it. That's the biggest problem cold weather we have here is just keeping moisture in the bird itself. And if they lack moisture, they don't want to eat because we know when we're dehydrated and thirsty, that's the last thing we want is to eat. And the birds are the same way. They won't eat if they're really bad dehydrated.
A lot of people look at the mud as an issue, but I don't sometimes think that they look at the mud as being the right issue. Or go ahead, Nancy.
Because you're moving on, but you guys were so vague about how you changed their feed right before a storm.
Turn off your light. Turn off your light. Turn off your light.
Okay. Or you're going to, hey, I'm pressing it.
It didn't turn off. Turn it off. Yeah.
Should it go off?
No.
You broke it, Nancy.
There, it's off now. It's off now.
Okay. All right. So you guys were so vague about what you feed them when it gets super cold or, winter and stuff. So what is it? Do you use less pellet? in more carbohydrates? I mean, explain.
Yeah, protein.
Say it again.
Say it again.
You up the protein.
Okay.
You up the protein is what you do. If you're feeding 18, take them up to 20, 21. Just give them a little bit of extra protein.
Are you talking about summer or winter?
Winter? They're in the cold spells.
You up the protein?
Yeah. Yeah.
What about the carbohydrates, though? Keep them warm.
Mine gets carbohydrates year round.
Yeah, no, I know that. But I have heard that when it's really cold outside, say you're going to have a below freezing temperature for the next 2 or 3 days, wouldn't it be best to up their carbohydrates for night right before they go to bed at night to keep them warm during the night?
Carbohydrates fuel the muscles. That's fuel for the muscles itself. What a lot of people says, oh, feed them whole corn. That will warm them up. That's not, there's never been no survey that ever said that was true. Now with me, I want more of a protein, build more fat, last longer in their system during the cold weather. Because without fat and cold weather, you're dead. You're not going to get that out of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is good, gives them energy, and makes them feel really good, and it makes them contain a lot of energy. And you feed a lot of carbohydrates. You take give you an example. I give my birds once a really high protein feed by mistake. I didn't mean that, but I went over a little bit on my mix, okay? I couldn't walk by the cage, Nancy. They would just they'd grab hold of the wire and try to hit me, and my birds don't do that. And I'm thinking, what in the world's going on here? What's the deal? And then I noticed they started drinking a lot of water. They was drinking water like it was crazy. So I said, oh, I messed up. So I tossed that feed off, redone it, got the proteins back down on it, and everything went back to normal again. Because now it will amp them. You feed the carbohydrates to give them energy to make them more vigorous during cold weather. It will help with that. But as far as keeping them warm and alive, you want to up the protein to build more fat and energy. That's what you want.
Okay, so then let me ask you this. So during the winter months, you don't necessarily concentrate on whether your chickens are getting too fat or not because they need that extra fat to get through the winter. And then once the winter is gone and you're in the spring, you look at them, okay, they're a little bit chunky, and you adjust the feed again to slim them down a bit.
That's it.
Right?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. You have, for here, I go by the months. What I do, I go by the seasons. And if you don't, say if you've got a bird that's down thin like you'd have them in the summertime, here in the wintertime, you better have him in a nice warm coop. Because like Kenny mentioned a while ago with the drafts and everything, I've never had a bird freeze to death, but if you've got them in the flesh that they are in the summertime with this 25, 30 below, they're not going to make it out on their own. We don't use heaters, but you better have a fire or a heater up for that boy. He's not going to make it long.
Okay, and then I got one more question. How can you tell when your bird is dehydrated? What are the signs?
The same thing. If you pick a bird up and he's thin, a sick bird, that's what he's going to feel like. He's going to lose all of his mass, his muscle mass. He's pretty much just going to be a skinny mini, pretty much.
Let me tell you what happened real quick. A friend of mine, the bird was kicking dirt in the water, so he thought he'd put the water up near the roost. So the bird had to jump up to the roost to get the water. And then I don't know how much time elapsed before he came to me. He says, oh, my birds are all getting really thin, right? And so I looked it over, and this is early when I was younger. And I looked it over, I couldn't figure out what the heck. They're all getting thinner. So this is around the same time I met Tony, too. And I went and told Tony about it. He goes, was the water easy to get to? I says, yeah. He goes, where is it? And I said, it's up on the roost. Every time he goes up there, he can easily get to it. He goes, he's never going to drink it. Mm-hmm. And so the guy put the water back down, and they did get better after that. But they lost so much weight, they never really got their full breast muscle back. So he ruined them. And that never left me, that you need to make sure the waters are in front of them all the time. If they have to work to find it and to drink it, a lot of times they don't.
Or they're not smart enough to realize how to get to it.
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot. See, on some of those dome cages we was talking about, I put jump boards up on them to keep outside chickens from drinking out of the water bowls and the feed cups. And I thought it was an ingenious idea. keeps down disease, all that good stuff. Only the chickens in the pen is drinking out of the water bowls and cups. I got some out, and just like Kenny said, they was just like I'd starved them to death. And until I put those jump boards in there, they was perfectly fine breasts of the weight they needed to be. And some of them was fine. Some of them was completely awful. And it was like Kenny was saying, some of them just wasn't smart enough or didn't want to take the extra energy to jump up on that jump board to drink the water or to be able to find it. And it was just like a bird that's dehydrated is the same as if you starved that bird. They feel the same, don't they, Kenny?
Yeah.
Okay, then here's my next question. If you've got birds that are constantly kicking dirt into their waterers, what do you suggest to keeping the waters cleaner?
I can tell you what I do is I have these crates I put in there, and I put the waters on top of that. I mean, they still will see that, and they like jumping up there anyway, so they can see better. But the water's just got to be where they can find it easily. If they have to hunt for it, search for it, or work to get to it, a lot of times they're either too stupid to do it or they don't. I don't know. But yeah, you got to find ways to keep the water clean, but in front of them all the time.
I always use something. My water is never on the ground, ever. I don't set it right on the ground. If I've got it in the pen, I've always got like a block or some kind of pedestal that lifts it up off the ground, a cup. I've even got these things, and it's actually made for it. They're plastic. It's like a little dome. It's up probably about that tall. You set your water in the middle of it, and the chicken steps up on it to drink. That way, they're not scratching dirt in it. It's up off the ground. When they scratch dirt, the dirt's missing it where it's up off the ground. But it's not that big a deal. They just got to step up 2 or 3 inches to be able to get it. They can actually reach it from the ground, but they can still step up and drink it. As long as it's not right down on the ground, you're not going to have that big a problem with it. But I want to go back just one other thing with the chicken. A chicken's not like a human in the fact to where we can suck water through a straw. Okay, we can put our lips against water in a creek and pull the water up through our mouth. A chicken's not like that. They don't have the muscles in the jaws like we have to be able to do that. They take a bill of water and it's gravity fed. They raise their head up, the water runs down the neck. Each drink, they're using gravity for that water to run down. I've seen people put it on the outside their cage, like what Kenny was talking about, like on the roost pole. And the chicken could run his hell out and get the drink of water, but he couldn't lift his head up to let the water run down. Even though if you got the water on the outside of the cage, it doesn't mean that he's going to be able to get it down his neck, because by the time he gets messing around, the water's come back out of his neck. So they need to be able to get the water and pull the head up to let the water go down the neck. So I found out a lot of problems with people laying chickens had the water up off the ground that way, was complaining about, Kenny said, with the guy, birds feeling skinny and dehydrated. And that was the reason for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's good. Good to know. There's so much that we just take for granted, that you've got the water there, they'll figure out how to get to it. But you're right. They do. They put some in their mouth and then it goes down the neck that way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like us. Sorry, Kenny. We went off on a little questionnaire thing.
I'm going to charge you for the 15 minutes we lost. So,
no, actually, I'm sorry, members, because it's going to take you 15 minutes longer to get to the back.
And it's all her fault. Okay.
And it's all my fault. But we have been an hour and 5 minutes.
And we're adding to it too, now. So, okay. Oh, my God. Mud. Let's talk about mud for a secin. Okay. A lot of people think it's just a pain in the butt, gets the birds dirty, gets you dirty. But, man, it causes disease because that mud's mixed in with manure, Frank.
Yeah. You look at it this way, Kenny. All the years that you've had your birds on your farm, all the years I've had my birds on my farm, okay? That's the reason I lime it every year. Because if you're not liming it and taking care of the pH in your ground, that mud is not mud. It's chicken manure. Because if you've had chickens there for 30 years and you're not liming it and tilling it and doing what you're supposed to, a good 6 to 8 inches of that topsoil is nothing but manure and bacteria, coccidiosis on demand with a little heat added to it. So you're right. It's the most dangerous thing next to diseases that we can have. And that's a lot of times the biggest part of diseases is just that, or chickens eating that stuff.
Yeah. I'm now starting to have chicks hatch, and usually this time of year, it's pretty nice. We're usually done with the rain. It's not wet. And God, it pissed me off. It's like we got birds on the ground. I've got birds sitting in nests, birds getting ready to start setting. And this rain comes, just messes things up. And I had a couple pens where the ground got all wet and maybe a little mud, but the damn hen tracked it into her nest box and got all her eggs net. And she was almost ready to start setting on them. And I'm trying to figure out what do I need to do because I don't usually have this. Doesn't usually happen to me. And like, what?
Lucky you.
Lucky
All right,
me.
So what did you do?
It don't happen to you that often.
Oh, yeah, no, but it's happening to me now. And I've got a couple hens where do I just pull those eggs out and she start all over or something? I'm like, damn. I was pissed.
Wait, so you're pissed. What did you do?
I haven't done anything yet. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do about it.
This is what I do, Kenny. This is what I do. And this happens to me every time it rains just about it. That's the reason I'd rather do hen hatches in better weather, not in the wintertime. But you can buy a egg wash that doesn't remove the bloom from your egg. And the bloom is the film that the hen leaves on the egg to protect it. Now, if you wash that, say, with dishwashing liquid, that egg will not last near as long as it would have with that bloom on there. You can get a wash from a lot of your feed stores, Tractor Supplies, that will not remove that bloom, but it will do it. And I just put them in there, leave them for a minute or so, and just give them a light wipe and put them back in. And I've had good success out of that. But Kenny's right. If they get all nasty and mud all over them, you're not gonna have the hatch that you need, because by that time, we told you what most of the mud is. It's just bacteria on top of bacteria, and that's not good with chicks.
Could end up being exploding eggs, that kind of thing.
Very soon.
Yeah. I was kind of, because the last couple of winters we've had were late, actually. And I didn't think we had exactly a late winter, although we had a storm that came through now, okay? And those late winters have pushed my breeding season over a couple months. I'm not having I usually start hatching, they start collecting eggs in January. They're usually on the eggs by February. And then I usually stop around late May, early June. We're in April right now. And I'm going to have a handful of hens, or a good number of hens, that probably won't be setting on their eggs till late April, early May. That's not good to me. You know what I mean? I don't like doing that.
I'm in the same boat with you. You've seen the weather we've had. And usually I take that back. I've got some that's probably 4.5 months old right now, free ranging. But usually I've got all mine done. As far this is my third clutch yesterday that we had hatched off. And I've got, just like Kenny said, I've got probably about 10 hens getting ready to come off in the next week or so, week and a half. So this weather's put me way back behind as well.
Well, here's the thing, Kenny. I hope to God they're not going to be hatching the weekend that you're gone.
I didn't think about that part.
Please do
No,
not
they
do
should-
that to me.
They shouldn't be. I'm hoping that, no, they shouldn't be.
That's the word, shouldn't.
No, they shouldn't be. We're not leaving till late May.
Yeah. So actually, you're not coming back until 1st of June.
I'm not coming back till she's raised all my chicks and they're all good without me.
Fine, I'll quit
I'm
my
going to
job.
make her
and
do
I'll
all
just
my
do
work.
that.
I'm going to call before I get on the airplane and go, hey, so how my chickens looking, Nancy? Oh, okay, I'll see you in a
they all
month.
flew the coop. What chickens?
Yeah, what chickens?
Yeah, what chickens?
It's just me here and the cat.
Okay, diseases. Okay, this is a big one because the common thought is, here comes a storm, get out the antibiotics. Let's start pumping them full of medications, antibiotics. Let's load them up because we want to prevent a disease, which it doesn't prevent a disease. But I don't know. What do you think, Frank?
I don't think it does. You're right, Kenny. I don't think it does is prevent the symptoms. It's one of those deals, out of sight, out of mind, I guess you could say. As long as they're not showing the symptoms, they're healthy, regardless of them being sick. I just thank God. I really do. I thank God that I wised up and I got away from all the medications and what have you. But I look at it this way. If I hadn't, where they took them all off the market, you can still get the black market type antibiotics and drugs for chickens. But just think what a bind that would put people in that was so used to using these medications, and then they take them all off the market. And then you got to buy them from Mexico, the Philippines, places like that to get them in. And that's so much money. And it's just, you're burning money. You're getting rid of it. That's another thing I said. just becoming a Breeders' Academy member, it's going to save you money. That allows you to get rid of those meds. What you save in money, you're going to have money left over with being a member of the Breeders' Academy and come out with more money and still be a member that way. I think it's a win. I thank God that I don't have to use drugs on my chickens, antibiotics.
When I look at farms that think they need the medications just to keep their birds alive just because a storm is coming, that's a pretty weak farm. And I look at disease as a selection point, and I breed for resistance to disease. So anytime I get a sick bird, which I haven't in a long time, but I'll cull it. To me, it's a weak bird. I don't plan on breeding it. Any bird that isn't going to be used for breeding on my farm doesn't have a place on my farm. So, yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, you guys talked about muddy eggs and muddy pens because of the rains and stuff, but you didn't tell me what the solution was. I'm sorry, I'm backtracking a little bit because I want to know, how are you going to fix feathers that are all full of mud and gunk?
Fresh litter.
What is your fresh litter? What is your material?
You like to use hay, don't you, Frank?
Yeah, and the reason, if I had my pick, I'd use corn shucks. That's the best thing ever. They last so long. You can get them out of the pen. I used to have an old dryer that had the heating element. I took the heating element out of it and just used where it would go around. And I'd take those corn shucks, still had the corn cob on them, the shucks and everything, and I'd buy them in big bales just like straw. And I'd use them in my pens, and when they got a little bit dirty, I would just throw them in that old dryer and let them tumble to get all the dirt out of them. And then I'd take them and distribute them back into the pen again. But the reason I use straw and alfalfa hay is, one, the chickens scratch through it. They get a lot of nutrients out of it, especially the alfalfa. They love it. And not only that, my yard, it fertilizes my yard. It keeps the yard good to where, like a compost, so to speak, where they scratch it and it comes out of the pens eventually. It ends up all in the yard. And if you see some of my videos, it's just in the wintertime, it's covered. It's just a straw kelp yard, fenced in area. And you get some vegetation grows up out of that. The chickens keep down. But where it's like a compost, it just keeps your soil, the pH levels and everything in it really good.
Mark was talking about pepper trees, and slugged my mic. You've seen my place here, Frank. I have pepper trees all over the place. And Nancy hates them. Okay. I love them.
I like the smell of them.
I don't hate them.
I do.
I don't necessarily hate them, Kenny. I just think
complain
that you're
about them all the
allergic to them
time
because you get really bad allergies, and I think it's because of the
pollen.
pepper trees.
I don't know. I think it's the bushes we planted in the back of the house, actually.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about those.
I've been living here for over 20 years, and
I warned you.
No, the pepper trees.
I warned you.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'll either get used to them or I'll die. Okay. The pepper trees are awesome because every year, I scoop up the leaves, all the debris from the trees that's on the bottom, on the ground, scoop that up, put it in my pens. And he's right. Even when I'm during the rain and it starts getting a little wet and muddy, I'll throw that in there and it works out great. I love the pepper trees. They're great around my chickens. And I keep trying to dig. I've talked to Peter Brown. I've talked to Dr. Gallardo, a number of other people trying to figure out, because I haven't wormed my birds in forever. I just don't worm my birds. I never have to. Okay. And in the past, anytime I had a bird that was that wormy, I would cull it. So I'm trying to figure out, and I think it may be a combination of both, that there's something about the environment that's given them some resistance to the worms, but I also think they're genetically resistant to the worms at this point too. That's the way I bred them. The guy I used to work with all the time, Doug, he was a geneticist and knew a lot about this. He was the first one to introduce that idea to me that if you could selectively breed them towards a resistance to parasites, being worms and lice and mites, that you wouldn't have the problem anymore. And so anytime I had birds with lice and mites and worms that was bad enough to notice it, that I would get rid of it. And I still, to this day, I can't remember last time I've seen lice, mites, or worms to a point where lice and mites for sure. But if they have worms on them, it's never been a problem. They've never been infested with worms, and they've always been healthy. So is it genetic resistance, or is it my frickin' pepper trees? I can't get an answer out of anybody on that.
I think it's both.
I think it is too.
I told you that when I was out there, because you can break one of those pepper trees, just the stem off of it, and smell of it. It's like oregano. It'll knock your head back. And see,
Yeah.
I have fed oregano for the past 15 years, and it's the same way. It helps you with any type internal parasites. And a lot of people over the years, they said, okay, when the FDA took the antibiotics out of our meat and eggs, chickens, okay, commercially, how do they raise those birds without antibiotics? And my answer was, and if you go to any type person that's in the industry as far as teachings in any type poultry, they will tell you oregano is the way to go every time. And a pepper tree and oregano is pretty much almost hand in hand as far as the properties that it has internal parasites. And I told Kenny when I was out there, I said, I think that's the reason. Because I'm going to tell you, Kenny, and I don't know if I mentioned this that day out there or not, but if you think about it, when your birds go into moat, their immune system bottoms out. That's the weakest their immune system is at that time. If your birds had worms and they get stressed out, especially into the moat, you would know they'd had worms because those worms would take over the bodies of those birds when the immune system got down.
Put that back up with Mark, Nancy.
Okay.
I got a question for him. I'm not doubting you because I don't know. Okay. But if you could find any reports or any kind of information that confirms that I can not only read, but maybe share with my members on the website, that would be awesome. So if you have anything that shows that how that works,
It's a fact.
that it's a fact, then I'd love to see it. So
Now, I don't know on pepper trees, but I've not researched the pepper trees, but I do know oregano does for a fact. It's documented, studied cases here in the last 3 years.
Frank, is there anything else we want to cover when it comes to preparing for the storms, dealing with the storms, fixing them after the storms before we get off?
The biggest thing that I would advise them to do is, I know it's difficult, but use 2x6s on your framing rather than 4x4s. And even if you use 4x4 framings on your pins, lock them down. Like I was talking about a while ago, Kenny, use the stakes to hold your pins down. If you don't use them all year long, use them in like the windiest times of the year, because with the cold and all the predators and everything that we've got that goes against the chickens, the biggest problem that I see with any backyard chicken people is wind and really bad storms, blowing their pens over, their chickens getting out, that sort of thing. But I know it's a hassle, but if you stake them down, I think you're going to have a lot less headache by staking them down than the actual work itself.
Yeah. Anything you want to say, Nancy, before we wrap it up?
No, I am just looking forward to the lectures on literature on pepper trees that Mark says he has, so that I can read up on it. That's going to be really interesting. So thank you very much, Mark. Also, we had one question from Rolando. Rolando, we are going to answer that. I've written it down. We're going to answer that inside the roundtable. So I didn't forget you, but we'll answer that inside the roundtable.
And he'll be there.
And make sure that you like, subscribe, and share often if you love our show, and give us a thumbs up for YouTubers.
Okay, so appreciate you guys coming, joining us, listening, contributing. Got a lot of good comments, and I appreciate that. So for my members, make sure you meet us in the back end. We're going to do the members roundtable next. And for everybody else, thanks for joining us. See you guys later. Okay, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you again for joining us on the Bred to Perfection podcast show. This show was brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where by becoming a member, you can increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and take you and your fowl to the next level.
We can also show you how to create a strain from hybrid crosses or mongrel flocks, and help you to create, maintain, and improve your present strains. We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel anytime.
To join us at the Breeders Academy membership website, go to www.breedersacademy.com.
Best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
While you're checking out the Breeders Academy, make sure to sign up for our newsletter, The Breeders Bulletin. We provide a lot of free bonus materials and some great information that will take you and your fowl to the next level. Well, that's it for now.
We hope you join us next time for another episode of Bred to Perfection. We'll see you later.
Bye.